Good afternoon, guys, and thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The W.O.W Show. This afternoon, I am so privileged to be sitting down with the Right Honorable Rose Willock OBE. And guys, we're doing it a little bit different this afternoon because as you can see, we're face to face. Typically, I'm in the studio and my guest is in the studio, but today we're here together. So welcome, Miss Willock, and how are you this afternoon?
Well, I'm great. Mind you, I have to admit to you, as I think the world knows by now that at this time it's my bedtime. But I'm up at 4 in the morning and I'm up all day. So by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my energy level is in Venezuela. So by 5 o'clock latest, I'm in my bed and fast asleep. Right. Well, I try to listen to the local news in the morning because I try to stay awake at 6. It doesn't really happen. I don't get all of it. So I make sure I get it in at 7 o'clock in the morning. But it's who I am, right?
So thank you so much. That makes it even more special that you've given me some of your bedtime this evening, and that
Thank you. I hope I can stay alert. So if you say I go off track, try and pull me back, right? I say, wake up, Willock, wake up, Willock. Say, wake up, Miss Rose.
So Miss Rose, thank you so much again for, sharing your bedtime with me this afternoon. It's an absolute pleasure. You're somebody that I have looked forward to interviewing for a very long time now. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. Guys, if you're just tuning in now, you already know how we do it here on The W.O.W Show. Go grab a drink, grab a nice comfortable seat, and join us for another conversation filled with inspiration, empowerment, and sisterhood. Welcome to The W.O.W Show. So guys, if you're just tuning in now, I am here with the Right Honorable Rose Willock OBE, and we're sitting down for a conversation all about her life. So if you wanted to get up into Miss Rose's business a little bit, we're going to do that this afternoon. So just to kick things off, Miss Rose, we both hail from the beautiful island of Montserrat, which you call your little Valhalla. Why is it that Montserrat means so much to you, and why is it so dear to your heart?
It is because it is the island where I was born, and because of fortune and with God's help, I was able to discover and be part of the entire Montserrat, the island where I was born. So although I was born in Trials, that's in the south of Montserrat, I had the opportunity to live in the east of the island. I had the opportunity to live in Plymouth, the capital of the island, and I was able to go to school, first of all, in St. Patrick's, that's in the very south of the island, then in Bethel, the very east of the island, and then to the Montserrat Secondary School in town. And when I taught at Cork Hill School, because when I left the secondary school, that's my first job as a teacher. I taught for 4 years. That's all I wanted to do every time. I have teachers throughout my family. Taught at Cork Hill School. So I got to know the entire island, and I love my island. Oh my God. Montserrat is beautiful. And because I've been fortunate enough to travel to different parts of the world, it makes it all the more important to me to talk about my island, because my island is special physically, and because we are small and we interact with one another at different levels, no matter what positions we're in, no matter what our qualifications are, we're just people. We talk to each other. And you may have observed, Vanya, I hope I can call you Vanya.
Yes, that's fine.
You may have observed that there's some people, based on their qualification, they might have a doctorate or they might have a master's, but yet when they're talking with people, they have a problem talking with people. Thank God, because we come from a small country, we don't have that problem.
Absolutely.
And some of the times people don't know who have doctorate and who have masters and who have whatever. We're just people.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your childhood for a little bit. So you grew up as one of 15 children. What were some of your cherished moments growing up in Trials and King Sales and the south of the island?
Well, let me say, although there are 15 of us, my mother had seven, and I'm number 4.
Right.
So my father, different, okay. So growing up in Trials in particular at that time, you when you're a child, you're a child. And this is what always made me so interesting in terms of interacting with children and young people. Because growing up in Trials, you were just a child. You have to say, good morning, Miss So-and-so, good morning, Mr. So-and-so, Master So-and-so, and all that. And that's all. And because I had very long hair, because my mother had very long hair, and I used to put ash in my hair with the hope that it'll get short because all the other
But
children
what,
had short
Ash?
hair. Yes, ash. You know, ashes. Put ash in my hair with the
Oh
hope that it'll
wow.
fall off. Not fall off that. Until when I went to the very east of the country where my mother had some older siblings and my aunts, they were, well, their children are older than my mother because my grandfather on my grandfather, my maternal side, was married twice.
Okay.
And my mother was the only child of his second marriage, you see. So when she was born, she had children who, well, youngsters who had to call her aunt, but because she was so young, their children were older than she was.
Interesting.
I found all of that interesting all of my
Mhm.
life, and this is what created a lot of my interest in terms of people and heritage and all the rest of it, right? What is your question again?
So what was it like growing up as a child
Oh yes.
in
So
that
so
area?
so so growing up in Charles, again, you were just a child. When I became more alert to people being interested in you is that because I was a smart child at school, because let me say for background that going to primary school in St. Patrick's as a child, you're going to the infants, ABC, you call it junior A, junior B, standard one all the way up.
Mhm.
But my older sister before me, whenever she came home, she would teach me to read. So by the
Okay.
time I went to school, before I went to school, I was reading. So by the time I got to St. Patrick's School, I was already reading. And apparently, if you can read book, you can be in junior A and junior B. So when the teacher found out that I was reading, and she's still alive, she's in Lookout. Her name is Teacher Sarah Ann Lee. Used to call her Teacher Sarah Ann, but it's Teacher Sarah Ann, right? And she said, but the child could read, and she put me in standard one.
Mhm.
And then I skipped classes because once you're reading early o'clock and books, that's my number one passion. And so it was class what standard one, standard three, standard five, standard seven, and then I wrote the common entrance exam to the secondary school, and the rest is history.
Yes.
But I'm not the only person. There are other youngsters who are like that as well, boys as well as girls.
Mhm.
And for some reason, all of us, we grew up like that. Those of us with that sort of mentality, if you like, that's how we are.
Mhm.
You know. I hope I answered your question.
Yes,
Oh my God,
absolutely.
it's my
Because
bedtime, so forgive
I'm
me.
sure that most wouldn't have known that you started reading probably around the age of 3,
Three,
which
that's
is which
correct.
is which is wonderful as a broadcaster because obviously you need to be very articulate and things like that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So as you were growing up, your
Mhm.
mum would have been part of the Windrush era, and she would
That's
have gone
correct.
on to live in the
United
UK,
Kingdom,
but
that's
you
right.
decided to remain on the island.
That's
What
right.
drove that decision, and why did you decide to stay at such a young
Because
age?
there is something about Montserrat that seems to enter to be a part of my spirit. You can call it magic if you like. So Montserrat is my fairy. Is that all right?
Fairy?
Fairy meaning the fairy. Have is it fairy they call them? Oh
Or
Lord,
those like mystical creatures?
mystical creatures. Montserrat is my mystical creature. I just love my country with so much because I'm a creature of the environment. I need to put it that way. I'm a creature of the environment. The natural environment motivates me to this day and always will. And the animals and all that. And when I hear people referring to children as kids, I'm like, say what? Have you ever seen baby goats? No young child could look at a baby goat and start behaving like a baby goat. Why are they calling them kids? But that's an Americanism, huh? It's now
Yeah,
being.
I unfortunately I use that terminology, and you've corrected me already this afternoon.
Ooh
So
la
I'm
la.
not sure where we picked it up
It's
from,
an
but
Americanism, right? And now it seems to be other places seem to be picking it up. But children, if they refer to as kids and they see kids, I mean the little baby goats, and they say, and they're probably thinking, well, that's why they call us kids, and they start behaving like the baby goats. Oh, please. Children are children.
so you decided to stay on Montserrat,
Yes.
even though typically they'll say the roads or the streets of England are paved in gold.
Gold,
How
yeah.
come that didn't alert you?
Because as a reader, I read about all the countries in the world from earlier clock, and I know about all that. The other thing is that most of my relatives actually migrated to England. My aunts and my uncles, and my older siblings. There were many of them were in England before I was born, so
Okay,
I only got to know them after I went to England to study years later. We were in
okay.
touch with the letter writing and all that, but I didn't know them physically until I went to England.
Mhm.
You see, to study. So, what was the question? You have to
So
forgive me
is that your
because
mum?
my
So obviously your mum, you decided not to move to England,
right.
basically.
So
So
and
what
and
made you stay on the island?
again, because of my love of Montserrat and because of the people and all that, and because what I read in terms of England before I visited England and studied in England, all that was no, Montserrat is where I belong. And at that time, there were some people who were happy to go abroad, to go to elsewhere, but not for me. I wasn't ready to go elsewhere yet. It is true that I did travel to most islands of most places of the world based on what I do, my career and all that, but that was later.
Yeah.
But as a child, I wanted to be in my country, loving the people of my country. And I know that the people where I live loved me because they loved the little girl with the long hair. I had long plaits and I used to put ashes in my hair with the hope that it'll fall off. My hair would get short because some of my girlfriends didn't have long hair. And I thought I was strange until I visited the eastern part of the country. I met some elderly relatives and I realized that the women, they had long hair plaited around. I said, oh my God. So it is heritage,
Yes.
but you don't know that until
Until later on.
until later on.
So let's speak about the Miss Montserrat competition.
Okay.
And you were crowned the Festival Queen of Montserrat in 1965.
That's true.
What motivated you to participate in the competition, first of all?
Because at that time I was interested in everything. Still am. I danced. I taught dance for many years. I had children's dance workshop. I was part of the Montserrat Dance Theatre Company and all that. I love dance. I still do. And I love the creative arts. So although I was an academic, what I discovered, and I love sports as well, and I was good at it.
Netball.
And not netball as well as athletics. And at primary school and at secondary school, I have those tons of medals, and at university, tons of medals as an athlete. And what was good about it is that when I went to the secondary school, I discovered that there was a teacher there, Mary Allen, and I heard that she too was an athlete. I said, oh my God. So it's all right to be bright, to be academic, but it's good to love sports because some people had this notion that if you love sports and athletics, you're not supposed to be bright.
That's true. Because sometimes they refer when you're creative, it's because you're not as smart,
right.
Theoretically smart,
Yeah. And when I discovered, I said, oh my God, that's great. Because mentally I was up there, but physically, medals all over the place. Ooh la la. I loved it. I still do. Go ahead.
So when you went to enter into the competition itself, who was backing you? Can you remember who your chaperone was at the time?
Annie Eade. Annie Eade had a store in Plymouth. I think Linda Eade and Errol Eade and all of the Errol Eade, the son of Annie Eade made my costume.
Okay.
But that is it. Those were my sponsors,
Right.
And I love that because, as I said, I love the arts and culture and all that. It's who I am, and sports. I'm into everything, not just only academics, but everything else. And it's like, wow, here's another opportunity. And so the rest is.
So where did you get that curiosity and that bravery and that tenacity to want to be a part of everything in the first place? And then, of course, stepping onto the stage as the festival queen isn't the easiest thing to do. So where did you get that confidence from?
It is because as a child, everybody, I suppose it had to do with everybody knowing me in trials, knowing this little girl, and because I was bright, he said, little girl bright, and it's a little girl bright, and you overheard all of those things. So you're always in the public image from a child, and being top student at primary school and at secondary school, the same every speech night. Used to speech night then. Okay. Nowadays they don't have a speech night anymore. What they have now?
Debating, maybe?
No, they have a speech night is at the end when you graduate.
Okay.
I don't know what they call it now, but we do have speech night, and at secondary school and top in your class, every speech night, I go up and get my medal and my thing and whatever else. All of my secondary school, you know what I mean? So people know you. And the other thing too with that is that those days, everybody went to the speech night activities, all the business people and the top officials and everybody. So they knew who you were. And every year you're up there. When I left the secondary school, I was offered a job. I didn't have to apply. I was offered a job. I'm like, to work at Royal Bank, for instance. The manager said, well, would you like to work with us? I said, I'll let you know. But I always wanted to teach. So I applied for a job to teach. But everybody knew me because always at the end of speech night, she going up there, it was a problem to teach, right?
Yeah.
So
fantastic.
I got a job to teach, of course. So I very gently said, no, I'm not really into banking, It's not part of what I like.
And I remember growing up, like working in the bank in Montserrat was a very prestigious role at the time.
It was supposed to be very prestigious, but not for me. No.
And do you think...
I thought it was boring. But Go ahead.
Do you think that your interest in
Teaching.
hold on, teaching? 1 second. I think we've had like a slight camera issue there, guys. Let me change the camera. One second. Use this way so we can catch both of us. Hi guys, just indicate to me if you can see us because I'm having some technical issues. I was trying to use a external camera, but something went a bit left there. I'm not sure why. So let's continue. I'll just check on my Facebook if it's still live. So sorry about that, Miss Rose. Let's continue the conversation. So guys, trying to be producer and using external camera today, but for some reason. So yes, so
I hope I still remain coherent because we're department.
Yeah, we're nearly there, so we don't have much longer to go.
Oh, thank you.
So guys, sorry about that. Had some technical issues there, trying to do multiple things at once, unfortunately. So we were speaking about getting into teaching. What did you love so much about teaching, Miss Rose? Was it because your family was in education?
I love the children. I love the interaction with the children, the interaction with the teachers and everybody because I'm a people person. That's the short answer.
Right. So what would you say sparked your interest in broadcasting?
I was listening to a radio station in Trinidad one time because again, I listen to radio stations all over the Caribbean. As you know, there was WIBS, there was ABS, there was Radio Trinidad, and I listen to
Mhm.
all of the radio stations because I want to know what is happening in all of those countries. It's who I am. I love
Yes.
information in different parts of the country. And one time I was listening to Radio Trinidad, and there was this woman. She was trying to read a story about a children's story,
Mhm.
and she tried to sound like a child. And I thought to myself, oh my God, it was awful because there was this middle-aged woman trying to sound like a little girl, like a child, a 5-year-old. I'm like, say what? And all of a sudden, I'm like, no, I'm going to go into radio. I'm going to go into communications because I must. Why didn't you get children? Why didn't you get a 5-year-old to do whatever
Mhm.
it was, And that is what created my interest in communications and broadcasting in particular. I studied communications as a media,
Mhm.
but broadcasting for me is the number one. It's number one. I've worked in print and I've worked in television, mostly in television and radio, not print particularly. I sent copies and in terms of print, but
Okay.
radio and TV back in the day. Nowadays in Montserrat, I do all these overseas reports and all that, as most of you know, for the different international organizations and all that. But radio is, for me, it's people. And for me, it is people, people, people.
Mhm.
I would coordinate and accommodate, but it have to be people, whether it's children, whether it is men, whether it's women. And my programs throughout the years have always demonstrated that, whether it is the children's or the teenage element, or a young people program or program for women. As you know, the Golden Years program, a program for the elderly. The
Yes.
Golden Years program was the name of the program at the time. No matter what it is, but people are always involved in those programs. They're not Rose sitting in a studio and saying something like a child or saying something like that. No, no, no. It's having the children there, the young people there, the elderly, the men, the women, everybody. It's who I am. It's what I do. People, people, people.
So it's actually interesting that it was hearing somebody doing broadcasting wrong that made you step away from teaching
Absolutely, and going
into
to going to
broadcasting.
broadcasting. It was like, say what? And as a teacher, it's like, okay, go ahead.
Interesting. So one of the things that you did when you were broadcasting is that you were the head of the English service at Radio Antilles. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and
Radio
how you
Antilles.
transferred from ZJB to Radio Antilles at that time?
Well, it happened because after I studied in Jamaica, I did media at the international. Well, I did the Caribbean. Oh dear, what is it again? Oh, what is
So
the
is
name of
that
the
you and Mona?
Caribbean Institute of Mass Communications? I'm in bed, everybody. I'm sleeping. Caribbean Institute of Mass Communications. I was one of the first candidates in that study program at the University of
Okay.
Jamaica at Mona. And interestingly, I discovered that although we were candidates from different parts of the Caribbean and different parts of the world at that program, initial program, diploma program in media, that at the 10th anniversary of that institution, apparently they wanted to find out who was the person who best demonstrated what the Caribbean Media Institute was all about.
Mm-hmm.
And I was most amazed when I saw it was Rose Willock. I'm like,
Wow.
Montserrat again. Yeah. I said, so what? So when I was identified as the person who best demonstrated what the Caribbean Media Institute is all about, I'm like, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. By the way, the Lord has always been a part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So what else
So when
again?
you went on to work at Radio Antilles, what was that experience like for you?
It was interesting because after I came up from university in Jamaica, I realized that Radio Montserrat, although local, I needed a broader perspective, and Radio Antilles was that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I applied and, of course, got the job, and the rest is history.
Okay. So one of the things that you did at Radio Antilles was obviously emergency broadcasting. And one of the first events, or I guess natural disasters that you would have experienced at the time, was Hurricane Hugo in 1989. Can you tell us a little bit about what broadcasting was like during such a catastrophic event like Hugo?
Well, as usual, because we're all people and we all come from the same communities, and we all we go to the same tragedies, if you like, because it's a hurricane, all of us suffer. If it's a volcano, all of us suffer. But as a communicator, as a broadcaster, as a media professional, you have to take all of that into consideration. And at the same time, you're dealing with people. So although you yourself are going through the same traumatic events, You have to try and encourage others to say, yes, it is devastating. Yes, we've all lost things. Yes, but at the same time, we should try and deal with it little by little. It is important to know that if you're afraid, it is important to know that it's okay to be afraid. If you want to cry, it's okay to know you can cry. The elderly, take care of the elderly because they're the ones who would normally be the ones to help with the children, and the children will be the ones to help to pacify their parents because the parents will be the ones to be all over the place and say, "Oh, mommy, don't, it's hard, mommy, oh, it's hard," that sort of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right? So it is important that we, all of that was important to me in terms of getting people to deal with the current situation.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was trained in emergency broadcasting, that's the other thing.
Yes.
So you use that knowledge to make a difference in terms of all of us,
Mm-hmm.
people's lives.
And I know that you went on to train others in emergency broadcasting.
Absolutely.
What would you say? Would you say that psychology also plays a role in broadcasting?
A
And
very important role, Vanya, a very important role, because if you know who you're dealing with, then it is easier for you to prepare the various programs, if there are programs, and even your dialogue, your continuity in terms of what you say to people, how you say to people, etc., etc. And for me, I always believe in getting people involved. It's not just only you get others involved because although you're the person who is making it possible, you have experts out there who knows more about volcanoes or hurricanes or whatever else than you do.
mm-hmm.
You make sure you talk to those persons as well. They may not have the communication skills, mind you, but you help them with that.
Absolutely.
In terms of sharing the information at a level where we can all understand. And in situations where, in our situation where we have different people from different parts of the world, Spanish and French, you make sure you have an interpreter to share the information in French and to share the information in Spanish. That's how we have to be. That's how we have to deal with it,
mm-hmm.
to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
To be as inclusive as possible.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. So I wanted to play. So June 25th, 1997 was a very important yet devastating date for us here on the island. Because that's when the volcanic eruption took the lives of 19 people here on the island. I have this clip from a interview that you gave to BBC Radio, so I just wanted to play it for the audience, just so they can understand how you felt during that time.
Known as the voice of Montserrat, Rose Willock is a journalist and radio presenter who's lived on the island all her life. The Soufriere Hills volcano, once just another tourist attraction, had begun a period of intense activity in 1995. Hundreds of people were evacuated from their homes and an exclusion zone was set up in the south.
By then, we were having several what we call phreatic eruptions, the scientists call it that. It's an eruption of steam and ash from the volcano, and gas too. Now, these eruptions were very intense. We would have, on some occasions, blackouts, day turning into night, because the ash clouds were so thick and dense that you just couldn't even see the palms of your hand when you held it up to your face, for instance. The rain falling right after, and all of that ash would then turn into mud. So what you saw and felt coming out of the heavens were almost like syrup or a chocolate mix. It was really messy. It covered everything. Then it hardens very, very rapidly. So the leaves, the vegetation looked very bedraggled and dead and bare. And you felt that sense of loss, A lot of ash getting into the homes, and you had to clean it up and you had to hose down and that sort of discomfort. But on other occasions, when those episodes would have passed and the rains would have come and washed it all away and the leaves would reappear on the trees and the birds will start singing again, it was beautiful, absolutely fantastic. It was such a day in 1997, that June 25th.
So guys, if you're just tuning in now, you are tuned into the WOW Show. I apologize for the technical difficulties that we've had. But if you're just tuning in, I am sat here with Miss Rose Willock. It is way past her bedtime, so bear with us. I'm so happy that Miss Willock has given me the opportunity to interview her this afternoon. So just now, you just heard a segment from an interview that Miss Willock gave to BBC Radio back then, discussing the 25th of June, 1997, which is fast approaching its 27th anniversary. next month, right? So whilst you were at ZJB, you were playing songs like Three Little Birds and stuff like that to really, you know, boost the morale of the people as we were going through such a devastating event. How did you manage? I know you have experience in emergency broadcasting, but how did you manage to maintain your cool, especially when, you know, you were basically losing the village that you grew up in as well?
Because it's the person that I am, you see. And by the way, the show is called the W.O.W Show.
Yes.
You don't say wow, you say wow.
Wow. So wow,
Yeah.
wow,
So wow, the
wow.
W.O.W Show. Okay, so what does the W.O.W mean, by the way?
Women of the West Indies.
Oh, women of the West Indies. Ooh la
Mhm.
la. There you go.
Yeah.
So what was the question?
So the question is that obviously during that period, you would have been receiving information from the MBO and having
That's
to
correct.
provide people with regular updates, but you
That's
were
correct.
experiencing this devastation yourself.
Absolutely.
So how did you manage to maintain such a calm demeanor? Obviously, I know you've had your training, but sometimes it's
It's the
easier
person
said
that I
than
am.
done.
It's the person that I am. You know, I'm not a, I'm not a, I'm just a calm person, you know, and when I think and act the way I feel and in terms of dealing with situations, I don't get scared very easily. I don't think I've ever get scared. Well, I get scared. I don't like snakes. I like the movement, but I don't like them. But I'm not going to run and no. I'm not that sort of person. You know, I'm very, how should I put it? A very relaxed person in the most difficult situations, you know, and I just do what I have to do.
So at that time, I remember you reminiscing that there were people who were actually ringing in to the radio station.
That's
I remember
correct.
you said there was one guy who was saying he was coming down Lover's Lane and he was riding on his bike and he was so scared. And then there was actually another woman who you
right.
knew who
That's right.
actually was a victim of the pyroclastic flows in
That's
that
right.
time. So how did it's still very difficult to understand how you still don't just curl up in a ball and cry?
Because you're dealing with people and people react differently. There's some who would cry and bawl and carry on and all the rest of it, and there's some who wouldn't listen to advice, and there's some who wouldn't follow orders, which is what happened because those persons that died, it should not have been where they were. And here we were on the radio station telling them, please do not go into the danger areas because this could happen, that could happen, and all that. They just don't take you on. They say, oh, have my animals, have to look about my plants. In a way, it makes sense, but it is still dangerous. So think about the danger, you know?
Yeah.
But some people, it all depends on where the head is at, you know?
I think as well, I think most people probably didn't take it as seriously because they were used to going back and looking after their animals.
Right.
And obviously sometimes in the shelter you don't have that privacy as
That's
well.
right.
So some of them were going back.
That's right.
For
A combination
that
of things,
reason.
a combination of situations, right? Because I mean, shelter life was just terrible. And it wasn't something that we were accustomed to. We all are very private people in Montserrat, as we all know. No matter how, although we are small island, we all have our individual homes. When we had to come here to the north, I had to pay rent. It was the craziest thing because we're not accustomed to paying rent. We're accustomed to what we call maroons in the villages where we came from, where you come and work on my house and the women will do the cooking and the men will do the building and all that and vice versa.
Yes.
And then you came to a place where you had to pay rent. It's like, say what? That's why so many people had to leave the island.
And one of the things that people neglect as well is that some people who had mortgages in those areas that are deemed to be in the unsafe zone had to continue paying the mortgage for a property that they weren't able to occupy.
Absolutely. And I was one of those persons because I just built my home, you know, my first home. The second home I built, I built out of my savings, so I didn't have a loan. My first home, I had a loan. And yes, I was one of those persons who had to pay a loan although you didn't have a house.
Which is extremely...
Tell me about it.
Devastating and harsh. I can't imagine. But one of the other things as well that I've always, my heart has always gone out to people who were from the south and the east of the island, because these people, for example, if you lived in Long Ground or St. Patrick's, again, people were used to going back and forth.
That's right.
And back then we didn't have things like social media where you can capture your memories.
Exactly.
So for someone like yourself who walked through the village of Long Ground and went to nursery school in St. Patrick's,
that's right.
How did that impact you personally, never being able to go back?
My memory, my imagination. I close my eyes and I'm doing that in my dream. You know, I'm dreaming. I'm walking the roads of Long Ground. I'm walking the roads of St. Patrick's. I'm going down to Still Valley and all those places, and you name it, in my head,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I dealt with it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but it was devastating to lose it all. But then because I love geography, thank you, Mr. Jim Bass, and I'm another geography teacher, Mr. Jim Bass and the late Kitty John at secondary school. I love geography. So although I was fascinated by what was happening in terms of whether it is the hurricane or the volcano, because of my love of geography, it was fascinating to see the actually happening and you're just not reading about it or hearing, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Totally different. And although you're losing things yourself,
You're
it's still
gaining.
fascinating because you're
Mhm.
gaining information as it happens.
Absolutely. And that's another interesting thing for me about the volcano as well, because I've always said it's almost like beauty in devastation, because
That's right.
where else do you get the opportunity to experience God at work firsthand?
Absolutely.
So it's destroying and
And
creating.
creating. And there's beauty. And, you know, again, like all of us who've lost, and, you know, I'm one of those who've lost everything like
Mhm.
everybody else and have to start from scratch and everything. But the beauty for me captures it all. And I can't, I don't cry, you know, because there are things that are material things, but in terms of nature, it's like, look at how it has changed. Montreal
Mhm.
is beautiful again. Hello.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
With
So
Toya.
you've also referred to the Soufriere Hills volcano as a life tutor. What lessons do you think that you've learned from that whole experience, and how has it influenced your perspective on life and also Montserrat's identity?
Primarily, it reinforced some things that sometimes we take for granted in terms of the fact that we're all different and we all respond differently to situations, whether it be man-made or natural, like disasters like hurricanes and volcanoes, etc. And the fact that we all lose things, it also, for me in particular, I learned that everything is for a time, if you like, and those persons who don't have money, uh, how do I put it? If you don't have money to say buy a house, don't feel devastated. You know, if you're only able to build a one bedroom house, do that. Start small, and then as you save, if you have a job and you're able to save, and you put another bedroom on, that's okay. But let's be practical.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a practical person by nature, so that's me.
Fantastic. And I like the idea that the volcano is a tutor, because one of the things I've always said in terms of Montserrat's identity, I can see that lots of the islands around us are becoming way more metropolitan, right?
Right.
And one of the risks of being more metropolitan is that you attract more crime. And in terms of preserving nature, if we had everybody coming in and building up on all of our free space, then the island wouldn't be the nature isle or the emerald isle that we're used to. So
That's right.
what do you think about that as well? Do you think the volcano in a way has saved us from a different type of destruction?
In a way, it has, but at the same time, we have to be practical. The volcano devastated two-thirds of the island. We
Mm-hmm.
have to be practical about that. And you'll hear some people call and say, "Oh, they leave, they gonna England and they gonna America." And it's like, where? I mean, if they're able to go to England because their home has been destroyed, they don't have a job, they have children who have to get into school. Come on, let's be practical.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the practical aspect that we have to add to situations of disasters and emergencies and
Yes.
all that, you know? So, but that's me, huh? That's me. Okay.
And I think it has a lot to do with your mindset. And I think you have a very open mindset, which I really appreciate.
Mhm.
So one of the things you continue to have the cultural show here on ZGB Radio long after retiring from broadcasting.
Right.
What is it that keeps you motivated to serve the community and to be an advocate for Montserrat?
There's people, and because I have the knowledge and the skill, use it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's it. Simple
That's
as
it.
that.
Simple as that.
So obviously, growing up in Montserrat, you're someone who has chosen to remain outside of all of the destruction caused by the volcano. What made you hold on for the island?
Because I love my country. Montserrat to me is my, what did I say at the start?
Your little Valhalla?
My
The
Valhalla,
Valhalla.
you know? And because I've been to different parts of the world, through studies, through working, through all the rest of it, Montserrat is still beautiful. It is still and it is my home, really. It is my, and I love this country, and I think my country loves me. That's it.
That's fantastic. So, what do you think about because obviously Montserrat has changed dramatically over the years. What do you think we require now in terms of major development in order for us to see growth and the future prosperity of the island?
First of all, in the north where we are, most of the land is privately owned by individuals. And if there are there are some who want to sell portions of their land to others who'd like to build over here, those who've gone abroad and would want to come back, then make it public and let that be a new part of who you are. Because as you know, you have property. If you have a property, it's mine, da 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 da. But if you want your country to grow and improve and expand, then we have to think about those practical things because the people from other parts of the island, they come to the north, want to be able to get a piece of land, they want to be able to build their home, they want to be able to develop a business, and we want to be able to have people, Montserratans who've left the island to come back home, or they must be able to come back home to live somewhere. And as you know, we're not the people who are accustomed to renting places. We don't rent. We'd like to have our own homes. And those persons who are abroad, they don't have their own homes in Montserrat anymore. And we have to be as practical as that, you know. So if we want the people to come home, we have to see what we can do to make it possible for them to come home, have a piece of land, or build a house, or be able to buy a house, as the case may be, so that they can come home. But at the same time, come home to do what? Are there enough jobs so that you can get a job? How are you going to hold our young people if there are no jobs? Those persons with skills and they come home. The market is very small in terms of the people. We have a population of under 5,000. You know, those are considerations that we have to pay attention to from a practical standpoint, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And I like the fact that you mentioned a practical standpoint because sometimes it's easy to just talk about things broadly and even almost in a way where, you know, it's a dream. It would be nice to have Montserrat back and it would be nice to have everybody back living in Montserrat. But what is practical?
Absolutely. We must be practical. Please, let's all be practical. And these days, with everything you're writing, what is it, Facebook and all that, is like, please. If you can dream, and yes, you can dream, but please add the practicability of the current situation, please.
Absolutely. So guys, we're just going to take a quick break before we finish up and close out the show. So just bear with us one moment. So guys, thank you very much for tuning in to the WOW Show. If you're just tuning in now, I'm so happy to be sat down with...
Are you saying the WOW Show, the Wild Show?
Wow, wow, wow.
Oh, wow. I thought you said the Wild Show. It's like,
wow,
hello.
Wow.
Okay. Okay.
So thank you so much for tuning into the WOW Show. I'm here with Miss Rose Willock OBE, and we've been having a great conversation so far about her childhood, growing up in Montserrat, the devastation of the volcano, and everything else. Now we're going to jump into a little conversation about all of her fantastic accolades. So
really?
Yes.
Oh, please. It's my bedtime, everybody.
We're nearly finished, guys. We're nearly finished. So Miss Willock goes to bed at 4 p.m. and we're nearly finished the conversation. So I'm so grateful that she's here with me this afternoon.
I'm awake at 4 a.m., madam.
Thank you so much. We're nearly finished. Literally, we have like 10 minutes left. So you received numerous accolades, including an MBE and an OBE, and also the Order of Excellence here in Montserrat. Of all of the awards that you've received, which one holds the most significance for you?
The Order of Excellence, because it's Montserrat. And it is great that the people of Montserrat, whoever put forward my name to be awarded the OE, that I say thank you, thank you, Thank you. But that's it. The OE, Order of Excellence.
So what was it like meeting? Did you meet the Queen?
Yes, I did. In 1966, I modeled a Sea Island cotton dress for her at an exhibition in Harris's.
Oh, so you were there when she visited the island.
Yes, ma'am. In
So that was,
1966.
oh yes,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
remember that.
Yes,
I don't
ma'am.
remember that because I wasn't
It was-
born yet.
Exactly, exactly.
But I've
Yes.
actually created a video about that. So
Okay.
that was fantastic. So you were one of the
It's-
little girls who were
One
there.
of the who modeled a dress, Sea Island cotton dress, sleeveless, made by Ina, what's her name, in Town Hill and all that. Yeah. I remember all of that.
Oh, nice.
And I remember meeting the Queen for the first time. I met her after that, of course. You know, I also met King Henry,
Prince Charles.
King Charles, when he visited as Prince Charles at the time and interviewed him at Radio Antilles.
Oh,
I
yes,
interviewed
yes.
all of those individuals at Radio
So he was
Antilles.
here in the first
was
time in
here.
the 70s.
Right,
Mhm.
you know, and all that. So
And then was he the one that? So did you receive the MBE from the Queen
the
herself?
Queen, the MBE and the OBE from the Queen, yes.
So
And-
did
and
she actually give it to you personally, or?
how did it happen? I don't quite remember. Oh,
I think you said I think you said the last one you received the OBE was from Prince Charles.
Prince Charles?
Well, King Charles. Well,
Okay.
and
I don't quite remember. I have to try and you see. Oh my
it's
God,
okay.
my brain
It's
is all over
okay.
the
I won't
place.
stress
I'm
you
sorry.
anymore. But
Yeah.
these are all wonderful accolades to receive as someone coming from a very
A small
island like
Small,
Montserrat.
beautiful island like Montserrat.
Yes. So what does that mean to you in terms of inspiring the youth to strive for greatness?
We just want the youth to use your skill, ability, and your brain that God created, that God gave you to your birth and your heritage, to be the best that you can be, and just be yourself and be involved in as many activities that you can, whether it is athletics or dance, creative activity, or acting. Your education is also important, so the academics are also important. And if you have that sort of brain, use it to its maximum so that you're top. And by you being top, your island will be top as well. And that's it, really.
Fantastic. So you're a veteran broadcaster. Obviously, you've worked for places like the BBC, etc., and you've also trained numerous broadcasters, as we mentioned before, with emergency broadcasting. How do you think the role of broadcasting has changed or evolved with the new technology now?
Well, it's mostly technology now for the most part, and I still would like to see the more people-oriented aspect of it. So the technology, yes, but if you can get the people involved with the technology, by all means.
So don't replace the people with the artificial intelligence
right,
or all
and
of that.
You see. But
so we mentioned just now a little bit about the advice that you pass on to the next generation. Would you like to see more broadcasters in Montserrat?
I would like to see more local broadcasters, people from Montserrat who are born here, who grew up here, and who have a lot of the history, heritage, and culture of the island. For the most part. But at the same time, I don't have a problem with others coming in and learning about your island. But in order for you to be most effective, it is best if you're a part of the island, like any place else. If you're in Trinidad, Jamaica, wherever, Montserrat, the same thing applies. And while you're in Montserrat, get to know about your country, everything about your country, the people, the culture, the heritage, everything about your country.
Absolutely. But do you think that we as a people also have a responsibility to pass that knowledge on?
To pass it on, yes, but in passing it on, you want to be sure that those who are willing to receive it do so. And ask all of their questions and get to know the story, the history, whatever of their island. But be ready to be a part of that. And those who are sharing the information, just don't think that because you have the information that you have to be like
keep it close to your chest.
Close to your chest, or be distant in a way. Just be interactive, I mean, because I love dance and the culture and arts and all that, I would still want to let the youngsters know how you do heel and toe.
Yes.
The string band music and all that. And yes, if I were to do in fact, whenever I do a presentation, no matter what part of the world, I would start with the string band music doing the heel and tongue, and I make my entrance by doing the heel and tongue, and it's like, oh la la, oh, who is this woman? Who is this woman? And then I said, well, and then I introduced myself, and I have everybody.
You're captivated.
Of course.
Fantastic.
It's who I am.
So looking back on your extensive and illustrious career, what would you say stands out to you as your most memorable or wow moment?
Wow. Wow. That's a question that I don't know. I have to think about it. My most wow moment. Ooh la la.
Or when did it hit you that this is what you were born to do?
Maybe at this time, when I think back, when I think about all my achievements over the years, it's now.
It's now?
It's now, yeah. Because at the time you're just doing what you're supposed to do, and you're getting involved, and you're doing what you're supposed to do, and all that. And I've always done my own. I made my own outfit since I was 9 years old.
Okay.
And I still do that up to this day.
Fantastic.
You know, and you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, it's who I am, Vanya. What else can I say?
It's interesting because Oprah Winfrey said that Dr. Maya Angelou said the same thing to her, because she was saying that she wants to build, her goal is to leave a legacy. And Dr. Maya Angelou said to her, you don't know what your legacy is going to be.
Right.
Your legacy is going to be everything at the end, all of the people who you've touched, all of the lives that you've changed, and everything that accumulates and compounds to be that person that you are. So I love the way that you answered that question, because it's true. Your wow moment is now sitting back and realizing, wow, did I do all of that?
Absolutely. and when I'm reminded, and some people come and say, because of you, I'm in media, and because of you, I say, really? Because oh yes, I was part of your Just for Change program. Where you from? Trinidad? Where you from? Grenada? Where you from? You know.
Mm-hmm.
And I go to different parts of the world and want to know who I am. They're like, oh my God. And they grab your hand and say, oh, thank you. I said, who are you? And they say, oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's all good.
Absolutely.
All good, you know? So continue the process, all right?
Yes.
Okay.
So guys, thank you so much. Miss Willock needs to go to her bed, so I'm going to leave it here. But thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The W.O.W Show. Next week, I have another amazing guest lined up for you, the Honorable Quincy Gums Marie, a trailblazing politician from Anguilla. She was elected in June 2020, and she has played a pivotal role in shaping Anguilla's response to COVID-19, whilst also championing sustainability, innovation, and female empowerment. Mrs. Gums Marie has had a fantastic journey so far, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy her wild story. Miss Willock, I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for sitting down with me this afternoon on The W.O.W Show. It has been an absolute pleasure to be here with you. And
I hope I was coherent. Everybody, if I wasn't coherent, forgive me, but it's really my bedtime.
So we have a few people in the comments. Maybe I should tell you what they say. A lot of them are saying good afternoon to you and thank you for sharing your story. They really enjoyed it. And yes, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties that we had halfway through the interview, so I apologize for that. The camera just decided that it was going to switch off, so I had to try and figure it out on the go. So thank you so much, as always, for tuning in, and I hope that you can tune in next week for another fantastic conversation on The W.O.W Show. Have a wonderful Sunday, and I will see you soon. Take care, guys. Bye.